go through and do a little intro on me and on AI and on prompts, and then I'll do a little instruction on prompt engineering and what that is, and then I'm going to show you a little bit about how that works in the Eazl application, and then we're just going to open it up for some Q&A. And so if you all can, try to keep your mics muted until you want to talk, which is cool. Like, I'm totally down to have y'all talk and let's make it open, but just try to keep your mics on mute while you're not talking, just so we don't get background noise. All right, cool. So let's go. So like, I think that it's important. Like, I don't really believe in telling you that you need to do something. If you want to keep working the way that you're working, you should. But obviously, you guys came to this extra skill session, so you're interested in AI, and maybe you already have some skills in AI and prompt engineering. And so really what I want to do here is try to capture your imagination around what I'm seeing here in the space. And honestly, frankly, how I think that AI can actually lead to a revolution where we are even more human. Ironically, because everybody's worried about AI, taking the role of humans away, and I don't see it like that at all. And you'll see why here, because like, think of it like this. Imagine like if Albert Einstein was your personal assistant, but kind of a weird Albert Einstein. Maybe Albert Einstein was kind of weird anyway, but like, imagine if Albert Einstein was your personal assistant, and also Albert Einstein could do anything that you wanted all the time at any scale that you wanted. I think that's a good way to think about AI, because, for example, within the Eazl application, which I'm going to show you guys a little bit about how it works, but I'm using AI prompts at least 10,000 times a month. So currently, like, we do a lot of like chatting. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about chatting and really why that's not fundamental to AI, a little bit. But I think honestly, the way people are using AI today, for the most part, it's kind of like hiring the best chef in the world to come to your house and chop your onions. Because we should be rethinking the way we do business from a fundamental level because of AI. I mentioned to you that I'll probably call AI models 10,000 times just for the Eazl app this month. That's because, to me, newsletters are dead. For the most part, they're over with. And of course, there's going to be some reason to just make an announcement, but almost everything should be personalized. Everything should be personalized. If Chinedum has some activity on an application, then the application should be taking that into consideration and giving Chinedum personalized interactions so that Chinedum can advance his goals faster, and that the interactions between the applications and Chinedum can be personal and more relevant. And AI powers all of this. So computers, they used to be like calculators, where basically we program them to do repetitive things over and over and over again, right? And I mean, that's really what software is. I mean, if you look at software, it's basically a machine that just does something over and over again, and the code is how the machine is set up. But now computers can think, and they can actually generate something. So they can create, basically. And that's what the G in Chat GPT is generative. Computers can generate, right? So as we start to get into some of the definitions and some of the flow of this conversation, I encourage you all to go to a guide that I share during discussions like this. I'm going to put this in the chat on the side here. I'm going to put the link, but it's Eazl, eazl.link/guide. So if you go to Eazl, eazl.link, just open a new tab, /guide, GUIDE, then you can see some of the definitions we're talking about, and you can kind of start checking out some of these prompts and things that I'm going to be introducing to you all. And you can keep that. This is a Google Doc that's open, and keep it for your own resources. You can use some of those prompts, like in your job search, for example, which you'll see in there. So what we're going to be talking about today is prompt engineering. So what's a prompt? Well, a prompt is a question or statement that guides an AI model to generate the desired response for you. I'm going to say that a little more slowly. It's a question or statement that guides an AI model to generate the desired response. So back to the Einstein thing. So Einstein is your personal assistant, right? But Einstein needs guidance because, for example, if Yemi is trying to use AI for something very specific, and I'm going to talk about business stuff. I'm here to talk about business. You guys are here to study business. So most of what I'm talking about and interested in here is about business. Now, if Yemi is going to be using Einstein to create a performance review of an employee, let's take two situations. Okay, situation one. Yemi goes up to Einstein and says, Einstein, generate a performance review of joy. And Einstein is going to say, okay, I'll do my best. And that's one of the downsides of AI models and services like ChatGPT is that if you have a vague prompt, the AI model is still going to generate a response for you. So Einstein is going to go and create a performance review of joy with no information about joy whatsoever. And it's going to have no information about Yemi's company, what Joy's job description is, what Yemi's role is, what's happening at the company, what the strategy is, none of that. Now, through prompting, Yemi instead can say, Einstein, here is an extensive background of my company. Here's our company strategy. Here are our metrics for the past 6 months. Here's my job description. Here's Joy's job description. Here are pieces of information about Joy's performance over the past month that I want you to consider. Here is how I write. Here's my writing style. Here are samples of things I've written. This is exactly how I want you to output this performance report. Go. Now, Einstein is in a much better place to deliver to Yemi exactly what she needs so that it can be a professional interaction and that Yemi's output that she's gotten from Einstein is usable in a business scenario. So let's talk about AI versus chatting and LLMs. Let's clarify a little bit here. I was listening to an interview, walking down the street with my little earbuds on with Sam Altman. The interviewer asked him, what was the biggest challenge in rolling out ChatGPT? And Sam said, it was finding how we wanted this technology to appear to the first users. And it took us 5 years to decide that a chat interface was how we wanted to do it. So, what does that mean when we read into that? Chatting is not fundamental to AI usage. Chatting is almost like a type of cuisine when it comes to AI usage. So like, imagine that like chatting is Indian food, but there's also pizza and Italian food. You do not have to chat when you're using a large language model. All right, so let's get into AI versus large language models. AI is basically building systems that do things that historically only humans could do. Now, LLMs, large language models, are AI systems that are built to use human language and computer code. So, why is chatting not fundamental to LLM usage? And how does that match up with the concept of context? Okay, so when Yemi was trying to generate the performance review for Joy, she could have chatted her way to giving the large language model the information that it needed to generate that performance report for Joy. For example, Yemi could say, OpenAI or ChatGPT, ask me about my job. And then, Yemi answers a bunch of questions about her job. And then she says, ask me about my company. So what's happening here? Well, when Yemi says, ask me about my job, that's one piece of text. And then the AI model is going to say, okay, tell me about your role. And then Yemi is going to say, I'm a manager. So you're seeing that the conversation here is Yemi's original question. The chatbot gets back to her. She submits an answer. Now, this is all context. Every time you're using ChatGPT and you ask a follow-up question, what's happening is your entire conversation is being sent back to ChatGPT, and then ChatGPT is attempting to create a response, its answer, that it thinks is the next logical answer in that conversation. So chatting is actually totally unrelated really to LLMs. LLMs do not have to chat. In fact, what you can do instead, and what I believe is more appropriate for business, is to provide a bunch of context in your original prompt. So let's talk about, so just as a definition, which you'll see in the guide, what is context? Well, it's information that the AI model uses when it generates a response for you. Okay, so let's just talk about a few examples of context. Typically, your context is going to be one of two things, either background information or examples. So let's give some examples of each. Background information. What's Yemi's company all about? What's her company description? What's her role, right? All of that's background information. All right, now what are some examples of examples? So for example, maybe Yemi puts a past performance review into her context. Maybe she puts writing samples into her context. Maybe she puts preferred ways of interacting with employees into her context. Those are all examples, right? All of that can go into your context. Now, a context window is how much information a large language model can consider when generating your response. When ChatGPT came out originally, its context window was about 15,000 characters. Still a lot, maybe like 15 pages worth of text or something like that. You can put quite a lot in there, right? Okay. Last week, Google Gemini just announced that Gemini's new context window is up to 40 million characters. 40 million, okay? How much information can you put into a prompt now? You could put an entire city code book in as your prompt. I have put entire Harvard Business Review case studies in to my prompts. You can put entire books into your prompts, right? So now that the context windows are getting larger and larger and larger, your prompts can be massive, and they should be massive if you are using them for business, because we want to guide the AI through our prompt to provide us with exactly what we're looking for. You can almost imagine that the AI could provide a response that's as big as a quarter in the context of the entire universe. Think about that. How many combinations of letters is possible? It's almost infinite, right? And what your job is to do when you're doing prompt engineering is to guide the AI to find that one spot that's exactly right for you. Of course, that's the goal. We probably won't ever get there, but that's where your prompt engineering skills need to go eventually, right? And it is a perfect skill for MBAs. it's a perfect skill for MBAs because prompts they involve strategy, they involve logical thinking, they involve gathering information. It is perfect for people that are studying what you all are studying. All right, so now you know that chatting is not fundamental to using LLMs, right? That's not to say it's not helpful, but it's not fundamental to using LLMs. Now, why would I say that it's not fundamental, and why am I harping on this so much? Because, again, most people are using AI like they've just paid the best chef in the world to come to their house and chop onions. If you are a large organization, let's say you're a school and you have 30,000 students enrolled. If you had the ability to use AI well because you had a good staff, you could be giving every student personalized interactions. Personalized interactions based on what their interests are, what their past scores are, what's available, what's happening in the world, what their curriculum is that they're studying, what their course schedule is. That is the future. And that does not involve chatting, because you can't have a person go and chat for each one of the 30,000 students. That's not feasible. When you start integrating AI in systems at scale, you're going to be doing a single prompt to a single output exercise. That's the systems that are going to be built most for businesses. While much of the world uses ChatGPT for recipes and essays. But that's, again, like hiring the best chef in the world to come to your house and chop your onions. And y'all are going to be business leaders. And so you need to be knowing what's really going on here and how you can use prompts at a sophisticated level. Okay. I want to just finish this brief introduction to what's going on here in the space by talking about custom models and fine-tuning and general use models. All right. So maybe some of you have heard what fine-tuning is. If you have, put your hand up using the little tool here in the webinar. Yeah, Lucas. So, okay. Basically, initially, there's a lot of energy that went into this whole concept of fine-tuning. And in some instances, training your custom models. And so what this is basically saying, ChatGPT is for the general public, but we are a bank and we're going to train our own model. And maybe they're going to train it from scratch, which is a very expensive process, or maybe they're going to fine tune it, which means that they would take a general model and then they would customize it for their particular use case. In general, that is not an interesting direction to go in. And that's because these general use models are so good and so powerful and trained on such large data sets that it has been shown in recent academic research that people with excellent prompts can achieve as good of output from a general use model like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude as people working with custom trained specialized models. This was particularly done in the medical field. So if Omodola is a doctor and he designs a very nice prompt with lots of the data that he needs to have in there and goes and uses a general use model, he can get a result that is as good as a custom trained medical model. So that is just to say that through prompting and prompt engineering, you can achieve almost anything with these general use models. You do not need to use custom trained models, and businesses do not need custom trained models. Lucas just shared the research there in the chat if you all want to see that. Okay, so you might be thinking, this sounds interesting. I want to build some prompts. How would I build a business grade prompt? So I like to think of this in terms of the ICO framework. And I'll put a link here in the chat. It's eazl.link/ICO. And if you go there, what you'll see is a very simple PDF that talks about this framework. And I think I'll go ahead and present it so I can kind of use the guide as I introduce you to this concept. All right. Okay. So instructions, context, and then output. If you look in the guide that I shared with you at the beginning of this webinar, you'll see some example instructions. Generally, instructions are used to give the AI broad guidelines, give it a role to play, tell it what to do and what not to do. And a lot of this can be related to how you want it to output, how you want it to behave, and consider data. Typically, instructions are just a few lines of text, but they can make a big difference. Because, for example, especially if you're using this for business, if you say, I don't want you to output anything with formatting, I found that to be very important, for example. Because you'll see a lot of times in ChatGPT, if you get results, it'll have something in bold or like a title. And that's great when you're using a consumer grade chat interface. But when you start using this for business, a lot of times you can't have your results have those formatting elements to them. It's going to look weird, and it'll look weird in your emails or whatever you're doing. The biggest one is context. That's in the middle. And you'll see here where my cursor is. That's what I'm talking about. That's where you're going to be putting in your background information, your examples, and it should be big a lot of times. And then finally, you get to the output area. And the output can be optional, but basically that's where you're telling the AI how you want it to structure what it is that you're working on. For example, if in the example we were talking that I mentioned earlier with Yemi generating a performance review for Joy, many times you're going to want to do this generation activity in a consistent way, where there's a title with 3 bullet points for what Joy has done well, and then an area that discusses Joy's role in the future, and you need to control the structure of the output, and that's what you do in the output section. And the way that I like to do that most of the time is to tell the AI that I want it to help me fill out a form. So you say something like, okay, considering everything in the context, I want you to fill out this form for me and do it exactly as I say. And then I'll literally be like, here, generate a title that's 40 characters long. And then here, generate 3 bullet points that discuss X, Y, and Z. And then what you'll find is that every time it will generate in the same format. All right, so I'm going to show you an example of this now, so you guys can start seeing what I'm talking about here a little bit. And we're going to do that by moving to the Eazl app. So if you all want to try out the Eazl app as we do this, you should. And what I would do if I were you is go in the guide and find one of those prompts, those public prompts that looks cool. I can tell you, I'll put one in here in the chat that a lot of people really like. It's one of the most popular ones. It's eazl.link/iprep. Cool. And I'll just go to that. I'll just go to that prompt here. All right. And then what you'll see is that you can go here once you get there, and you can duplicate, and that will put it in your own account. It's a really good prompt for your job search. This is part of a job search course that I sell. It's the best-selling job search course in the world. And the students love this prompt because it gives you a customized interview preparation guide. So not a generic one. It'll say, based on your resume and this job and this company culture, here are your strengths. Be prepared for these questions. You should ask these questions. Anyway, but this can kind of show you, here's our instructions. Then there's a bunch of context. This candidate interview prep form. And then, and then here, here's the context here. There's actually not a lot in this prompt because it's waiting for your context. So for example, the job description should go here, the resume here, some information about the company here, and then here's your output where I'm structuring exactly how I want the AI to generate. Now, let me show you an example of this that comes from the real world. So one of the users of the Eazl app is a teacher, and she teaches writing at a college in the United States. And she was basically thinking about quitting because when she gives essays as assignments, she has to give feedback. And each student's feedback takes her about 30 minutes, and she has about 30 students in the class. So what she was finding is that every time she assigned an essay in her class, she had to spend between 10 and 20 hours giving feedback to the students. And it was taking up basically her entire weekends, and she was burned out. So I built this prompt with her, and what it does is take into consideration the assignment, the grading rubric, and then here's the student's essay. And so now you're seeing some of the elements of the Eazl app. I'll walk you through the Eazl app a little more later on, but I want to continue on this output structuring before we get into that. So let's jump ahead a little bit to this placeholder concept. So what this is this is enabling the person on the platform to put 4 files, but you could put as many as you want, into the prompt so that each time the prompt generates, you'll see here's the button to generate, and it says 4. That's because there's 4 files, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it will generate 4 times, 1 for each file. And I'll show you what that looks like. This is called batch processing. And when you look in here in the results, you'll see that we have results for each file, and they're structured the same, but the output is different. So for example, this is essay number 2. And up here, you see the grade. And then you see the titles here and specific feedback for the student. And for example, the essay structure contains an organized introduction. This is not generic feedback. This is feedback tailored to that individual essay, okay? And then when we go to file number 4, you'll see again, there's the score. The same as file number 2, but it's different. It's the same structure, but different output. And so it's the same thing, right? So now, why is that important? Because, for example, let's say you wanted to review 30 resumes in a minute. You add them here. You add all 30 resumes here, and then you go, and they're all analyzed based on your prompt, and they're analyzed in the same structure so that you can compare them, right? Because if you don't do this output structuring, then the AI is going to try to guess how you want it to output. It'll be different every time. And that might be okay for the casual user, but it's not okay for business people. All right. So, and I encourage you, write down your questions because I'm going to take them here pretty soon. And I want to consider your questions. And I'm going to do a quick demo of what the Eazl app does. and why I built it. So I find that it's helpful to tell you why I built it. So this is the basic way you look at the Eazl app, is what's here on the screen. So I was taking a company through Techstars, which is an excellent startup accelerator, and it's active in Africa. I encourage you to apply if you are an entrepreneur. And this is when AI first came out, and I found that I constantly needed to do things like share my company information with the AI models. Like, this is my company, here's my brand, here's my target market. So I was constantly copying and pasting these texts into these prompts and building these long prompts, and it was annoying. So instead, I built this app, and each of these is a note. And the note is basically just some text. Some of it's long, some of it's short. Like, I can open it up. Like, here's a note right here. All right. So this note is an overview of the application. In general, I think an overview note is a very helpful thing for you to keep on hand. Even if you don't do it in the Eazl app, you should have an overview of yourself, what you're doing, your company. It's a good thing to maintain, because even if you have to start a chat with like ChatGPT, start it with the overview note. So at least the ChatGPT knows a little bit about you and who you are. But I'm going to show you soon why for business apps, you might want to use a platform like Eazl. All right. So this note, when I go here and use this feature where I can see details of the note, so this note is in 33 prompts. Okay. Eazl is basically a prompt management app. So what does that mean? It's in 33 prompts. Well, if I go and look at Eazl branding work, which is a prompt over here, there's the note, Eazl app overview, right there. But let's say something changes about my app. We changed customers, changed pricing, have new information, whatever, right? So I'm just going to do this for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to change the note, and I'm going to say Eazl app overview 2. Cool. So there, Eazl app overview 2. Now in the prompt, it's called something different. Now when I go here to this other prompt I was working on for Monica, there's Eazl app overview 2 as well. And it changed from Eazl app overview to Eazl app overview 2. So what this is showing you that your notes become elements of your prompt, because I've basically been pitching you on building long business grade prompts, and this makes it easier. Because I find that in business, different parts of your business change at different times. Maybe your target market changes a little bit. Maybe your marketing approach changes a little bit. Maybe the external conditions of the business environment change a little bit. Maybe a political regime changes and has some impact. But as a business, you need to have prompts that are reliable. And if you have to rebuild a prompt every time, it's not feasible for business if you're going to use it, especially at scale. So really what this app does is enable you to do things like select notes. So you're going to see up here in the upper left-hand corner, now it's 2 selected, 3, 4. And then when I go here to create prompt, I would create a prompt that uses these notes. Similarly, if I'm in a prompt here, and then I go and I search my notes, and I want to add a note to a prompt, then you'll see that I'm selecting a prompt here. And then if I add this note to the prompt, it's going to add the note to the prompt. Cool. So that's the basics of the Eazl app, is that it's a prompt management application. And the way that I have priced this thing is that for free, you can publish 10 prompts. So for you guys, that covers a lot of what most people want to do. You can save as many notes as you want and then build prompts with the notes. I'll just briefly tell you that Not everything in the prompt has to be a note like this. Here are some custom instructions to get started with. It's just text. So you can have some plain text that connects kind of your notes and builds the flow. But the real value of the app is that you're building prompts based on your notes. So again, 10 prompts for free, unlimited notes for free. You can collaborate with people on your prompts right there. And I told Chinedam that I think that in general, education should evolve to where oftentimes students are turning in prompts and then you're generating output and being graded on your output rather than turning in output. Because building a prompt is much more interesting than generating an answer. I'm going to tell you that much, because it puts you in a more sophisticated position, and y'all are doing an MBA. That's the kind of work that you want to be doing. So collaborating on prompts and also collaborating on your notes. So this would mean that if Amy changes something in this note, then it'll change on my side. So for example, how would that look in business? Let's say you work at a bank on a customer service team and you have your customer service, maybe some tips or some experiences that people have seen in serving customers, and you collaboratively build out a note. And then that note becomes a knowledge base that you build together, and then you use it in your prompts. So you say, based on the customer experiences we're seeing, tell me the top 3 patterns you see and report that to management, whatever. All right. So that's the basics of how the Eazl app works. And I'm just going to briefly pitch why. Oh, sorry. I'll pitch you the rest of the membership packages. I understand you guys are in school and you probably won't buy anything. That's fine if you don't. But so basically, if you want unlimited prompts, you just want to use it as a prompt management application. It's $100 once for life. And then if you want to use it to generate your results and use any of these models, then you have to pay $50 US per month. I would be interested in knowing what you all think is a fair price for this in Nigerian terms, because I have no idea what you guys pay for software, and I want to make this work for the world. So if you have any thoughts on what you think a fair price is for unlimited prompts through this application, please make a comment in the chat. And if you think you know what would be a good price for a business to use it on a monthly basis, please make a comment in the chat. I would love to know what you think. Finally, the last 2 pieces about this particular platform is that you can use your prompts in other programs. So for example, this prompt can be used through like an email service. So this is how you would personalize emails, is you would go and add a placeholder to a prompt, which I showed you all a little bit earlier. And when you're using the placeholders with computer programs, you can send information from your computer program. So you're like, hey, here's some details about Chinedam. Now generate an email for him. And then finally, you have to be a little careful what information you share with consumer grade chat models. Because I mentioned to you all that a lot of the value from AI for business people comes from adding a lot of context to your prompts. Some of that context could be sensitive business information, like your metrics, your results, your intellectual property, your strategy. And if you use ChatGPT, the consumer grade version, ChatGPT can remember some of that. And it has been known to leak some of that information. And also, you may be falling afoul of your company's privacy information, and you may be not permitted to share that information with third parties. So when you use Eazl or an app like Eazl, none of the information that you use in your AI generation is retained by any of the AI companies. So most businesses will need to use a platform like this if they're sharing any type of, if they're using any type of strategic information in their prompts. All right, I think that, okay, I'll spend the last, sort of 5 minutes before we do Q&A on what I think is going to happen with AI. So my view is that in general, I think that AI generated content is not very interesting. I think a lot of people right now are using it for emails and newsletters and LinkedIn posts and stuff. And I don't think that that is, I don't think that that's interesting. I don't think people want to read AI generated promotional content or blog posts or newsletters. And what I do think is interesting is actually AI for human services. So specifically, people like Chinedum, who from your MBA program, and teachers and managers and counselors and people in government, they're interacting with so many people, so many people. And that's where AI is really excellent. That's one really great use case, is in enabling more personalized interactions at scale and freeing up your time from doing repetitive tasks so that you can spend more time with people, which obviously AI can't do. I also see a lot of use cases in like back office functions. So things like monitoring fraud alerts, sampling of customer service interactions to make sure that it's coming up to policy, that kind of stuff. So all of that is very interesting, and I think that that's where AI is going to make a huge impact. Not in these places where honestly most people are seeing. So actually, ironically, I feel like a lot of what AI is going to do is enable us to be more human, which is something I kind of started off this chat with. And so, like, anyway, before I go to Q&A here, I run this business on my own. I do that on purpose. I don't want employees. I love doing this. I love coding. I love building. I like creating educational content. So I don't want employees. I personally have committed to a path of solopreneurship, and I'm going to do it as long as I can. And so I need help. I need help from people that I spend time with that find what I'm doing valuable. So the ways you can help me out is if you have any smart friends, tell them to go and sign up for Eazl AI and request a demo. I do free demos of the platform, and you can find in the guide the link to the demo. And also I'm going to put a link here in the chat. I have a prompt engineering class that I'm going to be releasing here very soon. And it's hard for me to get those classes started in marketplaces like these online course marketplaces because I need reviews. So if you're interested, you can click on the link in the chat and sign up to get early access to the prompt engineering course. And if you like it, just leave me a good review, and that would be awesome. I would really appreciate that help. And you'll also get access to a free prompt engineering course that is really good because I'm a really good teacher and online course creator. With that, I'll open it up to questions. So let's see. Why don't you raise your hand if you have a question, and then let me know, and let's talk about it. All right, let's go to Amadola.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. So my question is, can I use the prompt engineering for a real estate product marketing? And if yes, how can I go about that? Thank you.
Real estate product. So can you clarify just a little bit, like what do you mean by real estate project marketing? Like selling real estate?
I didn't get that, please.
What's that?
I didn't get what you said.
Oh, so you're asking how you can use it for real estate marketing?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, I think your question shows me why there's such an opportunity to change our mindsets about business in general because of AI. So I think traditionally we think of marketing and promotion as something where we go and shout at as many people as possible that we're doing something or we're selling something, right? And I think that that's not very interesting. Instead, what I think you can be going towards is personalized interactions. So, for example, if you can spend your time building relationships with people who could be involved in the project, so like developers, purchasers, vendors, and then let's say you keep them in a Google Sheet. You keep their information in there, their names, their email address, a little bit of information about who they are and what they're doing. Now you can flow their information through a prompt that gives them custom information about the project or whatever you're working on in their terms, you know? And let me just illustrate this through an example. Let's say that you know a real estate investor and they say, I'm interested in apartments that are located near coffee shops. So I don't know. So then what you do as you have your listings that you are selling, you have information about the listings. So you're like, here's my list of listings. And then let's say every month you email this real estate investor and you create that email by saying, hey, AI, consider my listings. Now consider what this person is looking for and then match up for them what opportunities would be best and send them an email. So like that's probably something that you already would maybe do informally by just keeping in contact with them. But imagine if you did that at scale. You could have 30,000 real estate investors in your database and send each one of them personalized updates based on what they're looking for every month. So I would see, to me, the way I personally am using AI for that kind of stuff, for sales and marketing, is all about enabling me to have relationships that were pretty much impossible before. And I am also being drawn towards having my own AI agent. So if you sign up for the Eazl app, one thing that you'll find pretty soon is that you're going to receive an email from Eazl. And Eazl is an AI assistant that I created. And I know there's a lot of investment and interest in chatbots. I, in general, don't think chatbots are that interesting. I don't want to talk to a chatbot. I don't think most people want to talk to chatbots. And so instead, what I do like is the idea that there would be an AI agent working on my behalf that is saying, hey, once a month, go and email Omadola about what's happening in the Eazl app for real estate marketers. And then using prompt engineering skills, you say, there's new prompt. Actually, for example, next week, on March 1st, I think, I'm doing a prompt engineering office hours with 2 real estate investors in Maine. And so Ainsley will know that. It'll know that it's an upcoming event and that we're going to be designing a prompt that's used for real estate market analysis. And surely Ainsley would say, Omadola, I want to let you know that this is coming up. And that's something I don't have to do, right? But in all those emails, I always would invite you to email me personally. So I actually think that when it comes to sales and marketing, you can have much better relationships with, virtually unlimited amounts of people. And that's what I'm trying to do with Eazl. I want all of you all to feel like you have a relationship with me because I've spent time with you today and that you know me a little bit and you know what I'm working on and you know what my beliefs are and things. And then when Ainsley emails you, that's kind of coming from me because this is like Eazl's me and it's my app. So I see a future where like Eazl becomes like almost like an avatar that's kind of comes from my brain and my creations and I manage it, but it's almost an autonomous system. That's pretty far off in the future, but I think that that's probably where the business will go. Anyway, does anybody else have another question? All right, Victor.
Thanks. So I have two questions. The first question is, so as a student, right, we have ChatGPT, the free version, and some of us happen to have the paid version. And then we also have some other AI tools like Grammarly that we use, right? So my question is, why should I actually get Eazl when I have the ChatGPT and Grammarly? And the second question is, in the academic space, AI is still something that is frowned upon, even from the assignments and the tests that we do. We have instructions from our facilitators to not use AI for any of the tests. So how do we find our way around that with Eazl?
Okay, so for your first question, why would you use Eazl? So for me, it doesn't sound like you need to do Eazl's on-platform generative stuff, because that's mostly for businesses. But I do think that the prompt management is something you should definitely get into. So like you're talking about, okay, like here's a good example. So you're talking about like using ChatGPT in your schoolwork and stuff like that. Well, one thing that's interesting is like these AI models, they were trained on the data of the internet. And that's great. But what we assume is that the data of the internet is the data of everywhere, but it's not. Most of the data on the internet comes from the developed countries. I mean, the vast majority of content that these models were trained on was created in the traditional Western developed world. Because while people in Nigeria might use Facebook and social media networks, there's just not that much local Nigerian driven content that has been published on the internet over the years. And if there has been, it's nowhere near the amount of content that's come out of like the United States and, places like the UK and Canada. So what you can do is actually add local information in your prompts. You can add like local information, like this is like, my view of this event. Here is the text from an essay that I want you to consider. Here's how we say things in Nigeria, like follow, and stuff like this, if you want to use localisms a little bit. And so in my mind, you should think of the way you're using ChatGPT. It's kind of like, cool, you learned how to draw a face. But where you could take it, Victor, is you could become Picasso, where you could actually do incredible things with prompts, but you need to get into building and managing nice big prompts. So I would suggest that you start investing in your prompt engineering skills so that your essays and what you're generating are much more sophisticated and taking into consideration much more interesting data and examples and instructions and things like that. All right. Now, getting around AI bans at school. So I could never encourage you to like cheat. I mean, it's just, I'm not going to do that. You should follow the rules. But I will tell you, as an entrepreneur, I don't give a shit about rules in general. I'm not going to break any laws, but I don't care about rules and you shouldn't either. Especially in business. I mean, I'm here to talk to you about business. And so if you've got a professor that says that, AI is not that important, first of all, they're wrong. And you should know that they're wrong. And you should get on the train. You should be doing AI work. It's just inferior to not do it. And if you look at the arc of history, people who don't believe that new technologies are going to be useful, they fall behind. So, you have to determine what you listen to. And maybe there's something you can take away from those professors that have AI bans that is good, but their view on AI is not good. You should not listen to what they have to say on their opinions on AI, in my opinion. All right. Any other questions? Cool. All right. Well, it's been such an honor to be with you all today, truly. Thank you so much for taking your time and your evening. to be with me, because I know y'all have such busy schedules. I'm sure probably many of you all have families. And again, help me out. If you want to take that course, please do. Please tell your smart friends about Eazl, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and reach out anytime. And thank you, Chinedum, for having me. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the call. Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Bye.
Thank you, babies.
Good. Very
Thank
good.
you. Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
Everything I give to you, girl, I don't want it back. Don't worry. People won't waste the money. She will come on. Training bracelets. Thank you, sir. Boys, you're really bracelets. I'm ready to be yours, never know another. Take me away like this. La casera. Later. Yes, so you have some left. Please, Eliane.
Love is in the air. To copy this tune, press 1.
Hi, well done. Oh. How are you? You're obviously not in the office. I'm looking for who can help me place Leon on an account. Head office. Okay, okay. Thanks. It's Leon, bro. Arrangement. Okay. Go to place Leon. Just did rush me. Dear God, this is what we're doing. Hey, asked you to see my name below. Hey. Please, out of what we book. Just please leave. $50.4 million. Exchange of this. Put a lane with excess amount of text. Should they have more? 50.4 million. Hey. What does that mean? 16:15. The event she was doing shaky. Yes. But they've taken somebody it's a lot to come transfer.